You found your way to Whispers of Crimes, a quiet corner where the shadows of the past are gently told. Here, we speak of real crimes and mysteries, not to shock or scare, but to wonder, to reflect, and maybe to help you fall asleep. So close your eyes, let your thoughts slow down, and come with me into tonight's case. She clocked in for her night shift and vanished without a trace. A janitor in a secure Manhattan skyscraper disappears during her routine shift. No witnesses, no alarms. Just a lunch left untouched ... and a trail that leads nowhere. 4 days later, a foul smell from a ventilation shaft reveals a chilling secret. But how did no one see what happened? Who could commit such a calculated, brutal act and hide it in plain sight? And what dark truth was hiding within the walls of that building? This is the story of Eridania Rodriguez, and the twisted path that led investigators to a killer no one expected. Chapter 1. A routine night that would change everything. It was a warm summer night on July 7th, 2009. Eridania Rodriguez, a 46-year-old mother of 3, arrived for her late-night janitorial shift at 2 Rector Street, a Manhattan office building located near the site of the former World Trade Center. Eridania had worked in this building for several years, quietly performing her duties as a janitor while others were at home or fast asleep. The building was known for its large number of office tenants, many of them high profile, but Eridania, as always, kept to herself. That evening, around 7 p.m., she spoke briefly on the phone with her sister. It was a routine call, a few words of encouragement, some light chatter about the kids and their day. Nothing seemed unusual. Eridania's shift was scheduled to run until midnight, after which she would head home, just like every other night. But when the clock struck 12, and there was still no sign of her, her family began to worry. She hadn't returned home. Her children, waiting for their mother, grew concerned, but no one could have predicted the horror that was about to unfold. At first, the family thought maybe Eridania had simply gotten caught up at work or was delayed. But as hours passed without any word from her, concern deepened into dread. The building where she worked was secure, its entrances were locked, and cameras lined the hallways. Security footage and entry logs would surely show her leaving. But when authorities began reviewing the footage, they were met with silence. The footage was grainy and inconclusive, and the building's multiple exits and poorly lit areas made it difficult to trace her steps. The janitor's closet, where she kept her belongings, was found untouched, with her purse, her phone, and even her lunch still sitting on a shelf. It was as though she had vanished in thin air. Chapter 2. The investigation begins as the hours turn to days. The search for Eridania intensified. Police launched a full-scale investigation, canvassing the area and reaching out to her coworkers. Interviews with building staff revealed no immediate clues. No one had seen her leave, and no one had heard anything unusual. The building's security system, though sophisticated, seemed to have failed in providing any helpful leads. Detectives soon focused their attention on the 8th floor, where Eridania had last used her access card. That floor was under renovation and was mostly empty. It was a place that offered many hidden corners, including air vents, ducts, and utility closets. Could she have gone to that floor and encountered something or someone that led to her disappearance? As investigators examined the building's security footage, it was clear that Eridania had been on the 8th floor shortly before her disappearance, but no one had seen her exit. There was no sign of any struggle, no disturbance, nothing that indicated a violent event had taken place. And yet, someone had been in the building with a motive to cause harm. The police needed to dig deeper. The breakthrough came when one name emerged during their interviews. Joseph Pabon, a 26-year-old air conditioning mechanic working in the building. Pabon had been on the 8th floor, fixing hack systems late into the evening. His movements that night raised suspicion he was in the building long after his assigned work hours. But what really caught the attention of investigators was his history. Pabon had served time for assault in the past and had a documented history of violence, particularly toward women. This was the lead that investigators were hoping for, but it still wasn't enough to confirm he had anything to do with Eridania's disappearance. They needed more, something concrete. Chapter 3. A gruesome discovery. Days passed without any answers, and the case seemed to stall. But on July 11th, just 4 days after Eridania's disappearance, a maintenance worker reported a strange and unmistakable odor emanating from one of the building's air ducts. The smell was overpowering and foul, something no one had noticed earlier despite routine checks. The worker, along with investigators, traced the smell to a ventilation shaft between the 12th and 13th floors. When the duct was opened, what they found shocked them to their core. The body of Eridania Rodriguez, bound with duct tape, was wedged into the small shaft. She had been strangled, and her body was placed in a way that made it difficult to reach. The murderer had clearly taken deliberate steps to hide her in the building's unseen corners, hoping her body would never be discovered. The discovery of her body made it clear that she hadn't just simply wandered off or left the building willingly. She had been murdered brutally and deliberately. The tape used to bind her was examined, and forensic specialists found traces of DNA. It was a critical piece of evidence, but there was still no clear motive. The investigation was about to take a darker turn, and Joseph Pabon was quickly becoming the prime suspect. Chapter 4. The trail leads to Joseph Pabon. The breakthrough in the case came with the analysis of forensic evidence. DNA found on the duct tape used to bind Eridania's body matched Joseph Pabon. This crucial discovery placed him at the crime scene, even though he had denied any involvement. But Pabon's denial was becoming increasingly difficult to believe. Surveillance footage, though fragmented, showed him entering and exiting the building at times that didn't match his work log. Investigators also discovered that Pabon had been working on the 8th floor, the same floor where Eridania had last been seen. When questioned by authorities, Pabon's answers became more and more inconsistent. His story didn't add up. He was nervous and evasive, and his behavior raised red flags. Why had he been in the building well past his assigned hours? Why had he remained in areas that were not part of his work responsibilities? Further investigation into his background revealed a violent past. He had been convicted of assault in his younger years and had a history of aggression, particularly toward women. Could this be the key to understanding his motive? Was Eridania an accidental victim, or had she been targeted? As the evidence piled up, the case against Pabon grew stronger, but police still lacked a clear understanding of his exact motive. Chapter 5. The arrest and trial of Joseph Pabon. In October 2009, Joseph Pabon was arrested and charged with second-degree murder. He had been working on the 8th floor, just a few hours before Eridania's disappearance. DNA evidence on the duct tape used to bind her body firmly linked him to the crime scene, and investigators had no choice but to bring him in for questioning. The trial was filled with shocking details as the prosecution laid out its case. They presented evidence of Pabon's criminal history, his suspicious behavior the night of the murder, and the damning DNA evidence. The defense, however, tried to argue that the DNA evidence was unreliable and that Pabon was being framed. They suggested that someone else could have planted his DNA at the crime scene. Despite the defense's arguments, the jury found Pabon guilty of second-degree murder. He was sentenced to 25 years to life in prison, a small measure of justice for Eridania's family, who had spent months wondering if they would ever get answers. But even with the conviction, Eridania's loved ones were left with a sense of emptiness. Her children would grow up without their mother, and the community would forever be scarred by the knowledge of what had happened within the walls of that building. Chapter 6. The Aftermath of a Brutal Crime. Eridania's murder left an indelible mark on her family and the community. Her children, who had lost their mother in such a violent and unexpected way, struggled to understand the brutal reality of their loss. For them, justice was a small comfort compared to the lifelong grief of growing up without the woman who had raised them. For many in the city, the case also raised significant questions about the safety of low-wage workers. Eridania had been a janitor, an invisible worker, often overlooked and underappreciated. She had worked the night shift alone in a large, secure building with little protection. Her death exposed a dangerous vulnerability in the system, one that left janitors, maintenance workers, and other employees who worked in isolated or high-risk positions at the mercy of anyone who might target them. Eridania's murder also prompted a conversation about building security, employee safety, and the importance of thorough background checks for contractors and maintenance staff working in such spaces. But for those closest to her, these lessons came far too late. Chapter 7. The Legacy of Eridania Rodriguez. While the investigation and trial brought some closure, Eridania's legacy lives on as a symbol of the workers who keep our cities running quietly, often in the background and rarely acknowledged. She was a mother, a sister, and a friend. She worked hard to provide for her children, and her life should have been one filled with more years, more love, and more moments. Eridania's tragic death serves as a reminder of the unseen dangers that lurk in the most ordinary of jobs, and the importance of recognizing and protecting the lives of those who perform the essential tasks we all rely on. Though her life was cut short, her story remains a testament to the resilience of those who do the hard work that keeps the world in motion. Her family may never fully heal from the loss, but they will always carry her memory with them. Eridania Rodriguez may be gone, but she will never be forgotten. That's all for tonight's story. Another thread in the web of true crime, quietly unraveling as the night goes on. If you're still with me, thanks for listening. And if sleep has already taken you, may your dreams be peaceful and your mind at ease. I'll be here next time by the fire with another story waiting to be told. Good night, and don't forget to lock your doors.